21st, Poquoson School Board meeting is called to order. Go ahead and lead us through the pledge since we don't have a school board representative now. Thank you. Okay, do we have any additions and or modifications to the agenda this evening?
No, ma'am.
I'm excited to see so many folks here with us tonight. And I will say once we recognize you, if you are free to leave, we understand completely. I'm going to get Ms. McKay to walk us through our recognitions.
Okay, we're going to begin our recognitions. Ms. Kelly Purdy is going to announce the names for our Odyssey of the Mind team.
Congratulations to our Odyssey of the Minds team. So we are going to first start off with the high school vehicle team, second place in the States. Ella Clark, if you want to come forward when your name is called. Sienna Donovan, Joey Guara, Jason Norville, Ethan Jordan, and Cassidy Larson. Congratulations. Actually, we'll do all of them together if that's okay. Yep. All right, so our other high school team would be the structure team, which received first place in states. Those would be Cam Brewer, Jason Norville, Ethan Jordan, Emily McAdams, Evan Harris, Cooper Martin, and Cassidy Larson. Again, congratulations, guys. I'll go ahead and start announcing our middle school team, which is a structure team who received first place in states. That team consisted of Bo Baggett, Andrew Wojawoda, Charlie Libby, Peyton Bradley, Lena Newman, Carlton Gill, and Skylar Duckworth. If our coaches could also join, we'd like to recognize you as well. Norm Remchuk, Troy Wojawoda, and Chad Donovan. Thank you very much for your time.
He won't be here.
He's not here. Andrew Wood. Charlie Libby. I love your shirts. Peyton Bradley. Lena Newman. Carlton Gill. Skylar Duckworth.
So as they're being seated, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the Odyssey of the Mind competition. It consists of a long-term problem that the team must solve and perform, as well as spontaneous problems that is solved on competition day. The long-term problem for the high school vehicle team consisted of creating and running a vehicle with multiple propulsion systems that completed 4 tasks from a list that would allow the characters to escape an unusual room. That's quite entailed. The high school vehicle team placed second at states and 18th at the World Finals at Iowa State University. The high school and middle school structure teams designed and built a matryoshka, hopefully I said that right, structure out of balsa wood that would hold as much weight as possible and incorporated that structure into their performance. The high school structure team placed first at states and 9th at the World Finals, and the middle school structure team placed first at states and 6th at the World Finals. Wonderful job, guys.
Next one, I think, is me. And for our, I want to introduce our 2022-23 student representative to the board. It's a rising junior, Lexi Peshinoff. Still got it wrong, did I? I'm sorry. I promise I will get it. Mr. Freeman and I interviewed several students, and we were blown away by everybody. But we're extremely excited to have you on the board, Lexi. And I will give you this, but I'm going to take it away too. So we just want to have something to present you with tonight. And then your seat will be right over there next month when you come.
And to help you guys get to know Lexi a little bit more, we have some pictures of her as well as some things that she's involved in. So you can see she is an athlete participating in the soccer team. She's Key Club. She generously donates her time. And she's also a state recognized, 300-meter winner for states last year. And so this is just a short list of all the things that Lexi is doing for our school, and we're really excited to have her represent the school body here at our meetings. So thank you, Lexi. Next up, we have a presentation for our girls soccer team, who were runner-ups in our state this year. Congratulations to our regional finals and state runner-up. I'm going to read through our list of our athletes. If you are in the audience, if you could please come forward to be recognized. Sydney Baguette, Emma Barefoot, Skylar Brown, Alyssa Capper, Peyton Dedmond, Katie Dunn, Emriana Green, Libby Harper, Avery Jackson, Sydney McCarthy, Kylie Patton, Lexi Peshahanoff, Ronnie Jo Rasser, Kayla Romine, Annabelle Simmons, Audrey Smith, Quinn Sparkman, Jalen Stroll, Michaela Ward, and Reagan Worley. Congratulations, ladies.
to watch it that way. Skylar's on here.
Sorry, I can't control it.
I'm not, no, Peyton's not here either, right? I'll just go through it really quick. Katie done? Kylie. Annabelle? We will get these all sent to everybody. Audrey? And I hope you two get straight.
Hey, Chrissy, you want to give these to the Odyssey of the Hills?
Norm,
You want to grab the
want
other
these?
ones?
thank you.
Appreciate that. Great job.
We'd also like to take a moment and recognize our tennis players who also were second place state runners up recently. Luke Gibson and Levi Kowecki, who are not with us today. We do have a quick video that we will also put on social media for them as well. Luke Gibson was our tennis runner-up for singles, and then Luke and Levi Kowecki doubled up and won second place as well. Thank you. Congratulations to those guys.
Thank you, Ms. Purdy. It's always great to celebrate our accomplishments, and I know we're all very proud of all of our athletes. I think our next thing is our presentations and reports, or no, I'm sorry, I was about to miss one thing.
That's right.
I will announce, unfortunately, he couldn't be here tonight, but we do have an outgoing school board member, and that's going to be Mr. Jeremy Jordan. He's been with us on the board for, I think, 5 years. And unfortunately, he's going to be cycling off, and we will have another board member. Jeremy, I think everybody will make some comments probably. It's been great to have him on the board. He's been a very sound leader that we've had, and I know a lot of us will miss him. Still probably reach out to him and get his feedback some. I know tonight he is right now coaching our 8-10 Girls All-Stars softball team in the championship. And we're going to try to get Jeremy out at our August meeting so we can recognize him in person then. And our next thing, we're going to move on to presentation and reports, and our first up is going to be Mr. Tillett with our superintendent's update, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board and guests and everybody out in Poquoson land. I'll try to keep brief, but this is difficult to try to summarize 180 days of instruction that we've just concluded as of last Friday. And this has been a challenging year, I'm sure for all of us, but it's also been a very productive year, as you'll see. And these are just highlights, no way in a reasonable amount of time to cover all of the amazing things that have happened in Poquoson schools this year. But we'll start with, in our report, we've categorized this in segments of focus. And part of the challenge always, especially coming off of a couple of years where everything was different than what we were prepared to experience and what we were trained to do. So all of our staff and our families and community has had to adjust. And so now we're trying to remind ourselves how to stay focused on the things that we know how to do, and we have historically done very well in Poquoson. So part of the challenge is communicating the priorities. During COVID, as you know, we've had to toggle back and forth and adjust our practices from mitigation strategies to multiple transitions. And that didn't stop this year, even though we were back in person learning. You will recall back during first semester, we had huge numbers of folks quarantining and out, and that was our staff. Our team had to rally. Many days we were covering classes because we didn't have enough substitutes, and you all lived this as we did. The challenge, I haven't substituted a class in many years until this year. So as we all did, pitched in and tried to cover classes where needed. So that was a big part of our narrative for this year, was how do we get back to normal when we were not quite normal. So that was part of the challenge, and I can't say enough about our team. Every employee and certainly the families that we serve had to adjust. We also did a lot of listening and adapting. We tried to create and promote a climate of respect. As you know, I meet with our Teacher Advisory Commission, a group of educators that are selected from around the division on a regular basis, and we just talk. What is it that's going on? What are things that are challenging for you? What are things that we can do to help support you? And so that's all part of growing this climate of respect. I also scheduled, I shared with a colleague of mine that I was going to do this. I was going to schedule a day in each of our buildings that was just coffee with the superintendent. A time for any employee who wanted to sit down with me and chat about anything. We didn't have any, this is something we can't talk about. Everything was open. And I spent all day in each of our spaces available. We had coffee and donuts, and I learned a lot. Learned about a lot of things that we're doing pretty good from their perspective, and I've learned some things that we need to work on to improve. I mentioned this to a colleague of mine that I was going to do this. He said, "I think you've gone crazy, Tillett." But I found it very productive, and I appreciate very much the staff that was willing to sit down with me and talk through their ideas and concerns. And again, we learned a lot of things that we have shared with our team, our leadership team, about ways that we can make things better for our staff as we move forward, planning for next year. Another thing that we do is plan. You know, I've always believed that if you want something to go right, you got to plan it. And so we're very plan-oriented around here. As you know, we'll be hopefully culminating the work that started in August in our strategic planning. The big part, it would be easy, and I'll say it this way, maybe easy is not the right word, but that's the word I'm going to use, to sit down and write a strategic plan. I've written many of them in my career. But that's been my plan. And I believe strongly that in order for an organization to be representative of a group of people that we serve, we should have it our plan. And so we've spent a lot of time this year trying to collect feedback and ideas and support from our community. We've met with focus groups, from parents to students to certainly our staff, and even reached out to the community, the PEF, the Kiwanis Club, the Retired Teachers Association, organizations that support our schools, and said, what is it we're doing well? And what are those things we should be working on for improvement? And then lastly, what are some ideas that you may have? You may have read an article about something that you think would be a good idea for Poquoson schools. You may have a kid or a grandkid who goes to school somewhere else who is participating in a program that you'd like to see us experiment with. So these are, this is hard work, and it's time-consuming work, but I believe it's very important. So the plan that you have is a culmination of all of that. In addition, we surveyed the community. We had what the company we worked with that conducted those surveys for us said is an average participation rate. It seemed low to me, but they say when we do these kinds of things, we were in that target of participation rate. We also have been very much involved this year in grant writing. With grants, you write a bunch of grants and you get some. One of the challenges with Poquoson schools is many of the grants that are available for educational institutions require a high rate of poverty in the community, quite honestly. They look at the first thing you check is, what is your number of free and reduced lunches? And that disqualifies you for a large number. I can't tell you the number of grants we've poured through that we don't qualify to participate in. But we still write grants. We've gotten quite a few, and that helps offset the cost. We're in our third year of implementation of Virginia Tiered System of Support, VTSS. We, of course, like every school division, we're in the process, and then COVID hit. So a lot of the work that happens with VTSS is collaborative, and so some of that didn't happen as quickly as we had hoped during this our COVID experience. But we're still collecting information, meeting with teams, and we're kicking that back off for next year, and we anticipate making very good progress. In short, and many of you already know about VTSS, but it is a pyramid approach to addressing the needs of children academically and behaviorally. So if a kid is struggling in any area, we then try to find what best practices are to help address those things. And it requires high levels of collaboration and training for our staff. Of course, we're always focused on instruction, good instruction. So part of that is, you've heard me say before, you can study it ad nauseum, and what you'll find out is if you want a great education, you have good teachers and employees. That's how it happens. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. It is about great teachers, and we have great teachers, paras, counselors, administrators. The list goes on in Poquoson. We're very proud of our team. But you'll just, and I won't read this to you, but you'll see by numbers that we have a very highly qualified staff, especially if you compare those to the state averages. And also, we're actively involved in recruiting. You all are well aware that we are in a national teacher shortage. What we found is that larger school divisions experienced that first because of the mass quantity of hires that they must have to run their system every year. Smaller school divisions like Poquoson are just now feeling the pain of the national teacher shortage, coupled with the fact that, also nationally, people are reflecting now on what they want to do with their life after the pandemic, and many folks are leaving the profession, unfortunately. But we have redoubled our effort in recruiting. We do local publications. We've started back on the street again, going to old school recruiting fairs that a lot of school divisions left and went to more virtual and online recruiting. We actually have hired a couple of teachers from those brick and mortar recruiting fairs. Kelly Purdy has done a lot of work in expanding our reach with advertisements, and especially on social media, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But we've also hired 21 new substitutes. You'll remember, you've heard me say since I've been here, we need more subs, need more subs, need more subs. We have seen the fruit of some of that labor and have increased our sub pool. We're also doing a lot of training. This year has been, we're back in the saddle again doing face-to-face and certainly virtual and online module training as well. But one of the things that we believe strongly in is the train-the-trainer approach. We don't believe in sending large numbers of people to conferences anymore. We've found that really doesn't necessarily work. But we select certain key professionals to send off to a training. They come back and then train larger groups of our staff. So we've got a lot of that going on. Of course, Canvas you're very familiar with. Our staff's getting better at using that tool. And Mastery Connect is an opportunity for our staff to It's an incredible assessment tool. Matter of fact, we had some training today with our administrators on Mastery Connect. It connects our educators with educators all over the country in assessment tools that then is populated and available to use through Canvas, and it gives you incredible data that can be shared in PLCs and as we work through making sure our kids are well trained. This is not just summative data, it's also formative data, so that formative assessments, so our teachers can assess even on the day of what kids get it and what kids need additional support. We have a new teacher induction program, which we've had for many, many years, but we're extending that from 1 year to 3 years. We realize that teachers need more support longer, especially during the pandemic. We're asking our folks that were hired during this time to stick with us in our mentor program. And we're also excited about engaging some of our retired teachers. We have some incredible retired teachers here. I've met many of them who are ready to help. So many of them are going to be willing to partner with us and serve as mentors to some of our current new teachers. We are developing our effectiveness by a lot of this work. One of the grants that we have recently received is through NIMSI. Dr. Hill's going to talk a little bit more about that, but I'm very excited about this NIMSI grant because this will help cast the net a little wider as we recruit kids to challenge our most rigorous curriculum, especially AP and dual enrollment. And so this is one of the ways that happens, and it gives our teachers and our students significant support in challenging and instructing our most rigorous curriculum. We've created or getting ready to finish the creation of a curriculum doc that many of our core team has been working on. Kim Montalvo has been instrumental in this. Emily Forrest, Kelly Purdy, and of course Dr. Hill and Dr. Ratliff. Many people have been investing in building this doc. And what it is, in short, is a one-stop shop. We don't want our teachers to have to hunt all over everywhere. That's very time-consuming and often frustrating for our teachers to do. Where is this tool that I need? Where can this be found? We're creating a one-stop shop. For example, WHRO has incredible resources that we are a part of because we're part owner of that organization. All of that will be available one click. The NIMSI grant training, all this stuff that we're talking about will be available to our teachers on our resource doc, curriculum doc, and we're very excited about that. You will probably admit that you have seen a lot more communication in the way of newsletters. Our schools are getting better at sending out a lot of information. You almost can't over-communicate these days. People are used to getting a lot of information and fast. So we're increasing that on lots of levels, including the information we send to you. We'll talk about that in a minute. And we've had these literacy and math committees for years. We're building our capacity to keep those going because there'll be, as you've seen in the strategic plan, a very real focus on literacy and math. We're doing professional development in K-5 in letters training and Orton Gillum training. We've attended through the Train the Trainer approach multiple conferences. There's a new law that requires training in dyslexia, for example. So we've sent some folks off to train. They're going to be involved in training the rest of the staff through the Train the Trainer approach in August. We have something we're very excited about. We experimented with it last year with a individualized professional learning program that we call Spark. It's basically tailor-made by choice for our teachers. We often find that schools are tempted to have to send somebody off somewhere or bring in a guru to train. And the reality is many of our experts are among us. Great teachers are walking our halls. And what we find is we don't carve out enough time and formalize the opportunity for those teachers to train their colleagues. And that's what Spark is about. So we did a test of this this past year. It was well received. We got really good feedback from our staff. So we've got another one planned for August, and then we're going to do another one mid-year where our teachers sign up for the training they're interested in. The one size fits all in professional learning doesn't work. Everybody doesn't need the same thing. So our teachers get to tailor make what they're interested in learning or what they need to learn to hone their trade. And that's what Spark is all about. So we're very excited about that. You all will get a formal invitation to attend. Hope you can join us. You're welcome to participate in as many of those trainings as you want, or walk around and just watch it happening. But this will replace the old convocation kind of a day. We'll have a big kickoff, a lot of fun, a lot of hoopla as we're excited about the year starting. But then we go right into this individualized training program that our teachers will have chosen what they're interested in learning. So we're very excited about that. And thanks to you all and your calendar work, the teachers are very excited about, again, next year having those half days to do the collaborative work that's necessary to train our kids at high levels. And then, of course, operations. You can't have...
Before you get into that, I got a couple of questions about your instruction. So you mentioned about bigger divisions, losing staff before smaller divisions, and so do we know how many new teachers we're going to hire for next year? Or how many spots we need?
I looked today, and we're right at 20 that are current openings. Now, we've hired some folks, y'all have seen in your packet, and we lost somebody yesterday. So right now, we've got about 20.
That's K-12?
K-12, and that includes central staff. As you know, we have a director of student services that we're recruiting. So we've got some interviews scheduled for that. So we just hired a speech language pathologist today, actually. So we're down to, I talked to Ms. Bunting right before the meeting, and it's right around 20.
But 20 is good. I know that neighboring divisions, I know Hampton City Schools is looking to hire 258 across K-12.
Wow.
So 20 is a great number.
Yeah, we feel like we can do it. Now there's the gentleman and ladies agreement around the peninsula that we don't steal from each other after the 30th of June. So we're getting close.
So I do have one other question.
Sure.
You mentioned Mastery Connect. Is that new this year, or is that something that's been?
It is. It replaces a program that we have been using before called Performance Matters, and it's better. It's just more user-friendly. It does some things. I mean, I was very impressed today when we had our leadership teams training in Mastery Connect.
So I would just encourage, just make everyone aware it's a great system. I'm very familiar with it.
Oh, you use it. Okay, in Hampton.
And just be aware that not every test and resource in there is aligned to Virginia standards.
We've learned that. We actually learned that today, and what we were cautioned about in the training is to make sure that when teachers access it, because they can access it, it's a national company. Right. They can do Common Core stuff and all that stuff that's out there. But if you scroll down to Virginia standards, we're at least told that those standards are aligned with ours. But you got to be careful, because there's, for example, we were looking at math today. There's the 2016 math curriculum, and then there's the 2016 unpacked math curriculum. So the teacher has to be very intentional to press the right button, and we'll, of course, cover that carefully in our training. But very good point. I noticed that today too, because the laundry list of curricula that you can access is overwhelming. And of course, operations, we've got a lot of work going on in operations. The main part is our building infrastructure. We have added 3 new buses to the tune of about $345,000, thank goodness, with federal money that we could access. We've hired 3 new bus drivers. We increased their pay. The run rate went up. We were able to pay $2 additional per run, and that puts us pretty much at the top of the peninsula in per hour bus driver pay, which I like to be at the top, and we're not at the top in any other pay category. But so it's good to be there, and I can't thank our drivers enough for the hard work that they do and dedication to our kids, getting them to and from school safely. And of course, you'll hear more about this later, but in the operations report. But we're very excited about, and I won't read all those bullet points about the middle school renovation project, which is still ahead of schedule. So our target date now is September, which is very exciting news.
That's wonderful.
Our teachers are very excited. The middle school staff had the opportunity to tour the building over the last couple of weeks. And all I've heard from the staff is excitement. Looking at Melissa over there, they're all planning the move. They've been working hard this week, boxing up their instructional supplies so that we can get those delivered over. But the only challenge with this is we had a semester to move in this building. Now we have a couple of months. So when we get the go for it, we're going to move fast. We're going to, of course, rally the troops and hire temps to get moved in that building. But it's a beautiful space and can't wait to have kids in it. These are things you all know because you approved each of these things, but we're very excited about the fact that we were able to, with dedicated commitment and financial support from City Council, can't thank them enough for all of these additions to the football field. One of the things I want to point out is, in addition to those hard structures, we also have we invested in streaming equipment during the pandemic so that families who couldn't come out and see live because of restrictions, we could stream it out. Well, now we're making those permanent infrastructure capabilities so grandmom in another state can watch her grandchild participate in sports in our gyms and on our fields. So we're very excited about that opportunity moving forward. One of the unintended but positive byproducts of the pandemic. We also have the traffic loop. As we reported back, we did get a bid that was within the budget. So that process, the attorneys are looking at the contract now. We should get that started right away. New sound system at the gym was invested in, streaming equipment, we talked about that. We've just repainted the tennis courts. We've got new discus pad installed at the track area, and we're beginning the process to go out for bid. Now this will take some time to replace the HVAC system at the primary school, which we're very excited about as well. We issued contracts, as you well know, for food services, for a new custodial service, for lawn care maintenance. We are upgrading our technology. Teachers will get new workstations set up with Windows-based laptops, docking stations, hover cams, and conference cams, all part of the budget process for next year. So we're very excited about that as well. Finance, all this has to be paid for, and these are numbers you've seen throughout the year. We couldn't have done most of this without the infusion of federal funds that came from the pandemic. So those are just pockets of how we were able to pay for some of those school buses, air filtration systems in all the classrooms, and all those things that we now still will benefit from moving forward. We also have a very generous community, as you well know, so we've had over $63,000 of private donations infused into our classrooms. You'll remember a local church gave the primary school all of their supplies last year. So these kinds of things just add up, and we're so thankful to have such a generous community. And of course, as we said before, we've communicated, and we'll continue to do that. These are ways we do that. We encourage Let's Talk. We get, depending on what's going on in the community, some days we get 5 or 6 Let's Talk questions, comments, and we always respond back. We may go 2 or 3 days without hearing from anybody, but it's a great opportunity for people to reach out to our central leadership and get immediate answers or express any concerns. We do collaborative meetings, of course, administratively, and this newsletter that you all get every couple of weeks, we're now going to make public and add it on our website and send it out to our constituents. So again, I don't think you can over communicate. These are wonderful things happening in our schools. When I first got here, I said, what an amazing place, but we don't tell our story very well. So that's something we're going to be focused on, is telling our story often. And one of the, if you'll notice the social media bullets there, we've increased our presence on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter by over 200%, 254%, more hits on these social channels. So people are hearing our story as we send out information. And again, I want to thank our team, but especially Kelly Purdy's kind of led this charge, and we can't thank her enough for her work in getting our story told. This is something we're very excited about. We've had an increased hit in our website, so we're constantly looking at how we communicate, and our website is still the primary way people find out information from us. We do the social media, but still people go to our website, and you'll see the numbers of hits. This platform that we invested in some years ago is now obsolete. They don't maintain it any longer. So we went out to companies that build websites, primarily ones that do business with schools, and have landed on Final Site for our new website. There's no significant cost increase to go to toggle to what we were paying before for the older web platform. Now we're going to a new web platform with all kinds of bells and whistles. So I'm very excited about that. We're going to launch in August, and it's going to have so many cool features to, again, help tell our story and get information out to our constituents and stakeholders. This is just a sample, of course. We're in the process of building as we speak. This is not our website. This is just a sample of the Final Site product.
I got a question as far as that website goes. Do they have the ability to ingest all the current data so that there's not too much work on our IT folks?
Yes, very good question, and that was the first question our team asked, is how much behind-the-scenes work is necessary. A lot of this can be transferred over, and most of that work is happening as we speak, but, and I'll let Kelly say, is it overwhelming?
Yes.
Okay.
It is overwhelming. They're moving some pages for us, they're helping us to build it, but a lot of the content we're going to have to ship. But it's actually not a good thing, it's like cleaning a closet, so it's a way to make information more concise.
And again, Kim Montalvo and Kelly have tag teamed in doing a lot of this work, so I want to thank them publicly as well for that. And in conclusion, I just don't know how to say thank you enough. All of this work, and this is again a Cliff Notes version of the enormous lift that's happened this year, trying to come out of a very challenging couple of years and get back to normal, and then get focused again on teaching and learning, which is what we're here to do. And I want to thank all of these groups of folks, certainly you folks who have been instrumental in making all of this happen, and our families, our teachers and staff, and City Council for supporting us like they do, and our community partners, the PEF and the Kiwanis Club and the various organizations that contribute time and financial support to make our schools the best. And lastly, I want to cry. There we go. And remind us always of the why. And so I'll conclude my presentation with why we do what we do. Maybe.
questions? Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you for the video, all the videos tonight. It's great.
I
Yeah.
think we got some good stuff for our new website.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Next up, we have our instruction update with Dr. Hill.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chairperson, Superintendent Tillett, members of the board, colleagues, and visitors. Tonight's presentation, I have divided up into 5 segments: recruiting and hiring, professional development, grant partnerships, summer school update, and the strategic plan. So Mr. Tillett touched on some of these things for recruiting and hiring, but we went to a number of recruiting fairs this year and were able to make early offers. We always know that we'll have openings due to attrition, and so we were trying to get ahead of the game as school divisions compete for a very small pool of applicants. We have been working with our vendor Frontline to recruit, and they actually gave us a suggestion to use a platform called JobSpot, where we can target hard-to-fill positions. So, for example, we could send out an advertisement to math teachers, for example, to try and recruit them to Poquoson. We, as Mr. Tillett said, Kelly Purdy has done a great job with marketing. We've been updating our publications, but she also has been working with community members to borrow drones, and so we have drone footage of the outside of our buildings. We have tours of the inside of our buildings, so we can post those to the website. We take those clips to recruiting fairs, and we can share them with potential employees. In terms of professional development, we do try to go out to our staff and solicit their feedback. So we've disseminated a number of needs assessments to ask them about SOL testing. What do they think about the schedule this year? And we'll start already building the schedule for next year. We've asked them about their professional development needs, what professional development they'd like to see for instructional technology. So we're always trying to target things that align with their interest area. As Mr. Tillett said, we have Canvas and we'll be transferring over to Mastery Connect, and we found out in our training today that, was it Canvas bought Mastery Connect, but the 2 platforms now talk to one another, and so that will make collaboration much easier for our teachers. So they'll be able to use the course management system to post assignments and grades, and then also the Mastery Connect student assessment. Teachers can actually collaborate on building assessments. We're working on finalizing August professional development, and we're looking to align all of our professional development with a strategic plan. We will be working this summer to create a year-long professional development calendar that, again, is aligned to the strategic plan. And we're going to be scheduling regular classroom walkthroughs as well as having regular data talks. And so we'll be looking at attendance data and behavioral data in addition to growth assessments, benchmark assessments, et cetera, so that we can identify where the gaps are in learning, and that then helps us further target our professional development. Mr. Tillett had briefly touched on NIMSY, and I'd like to highlight just some components. This is a pretty awesome partnership, and we were actually connected with the NIMSY folks through our liaison, our military liaison, Tammy. And actually NIMSY, the National Math and Science Initiative, they're an equity organization, and so they're all about promoting STEM and promoting equality and open access for all students to a rigorous course of study. And so they actually have 2 programs that are wrapped into this grant. One of them is called the College Readiness Program, or the CRP, and that focuses on advanced placement, and we'll talk about that in some subsequent slides. And then they have another program called Laying the Foundation that is for teachers who teach non-AP classes, but 6th through 12th grade math, science, and English. So they have a pretty far-reaching access, and the really great thing about NIMSY is because we have such a high population of military-connected students, we actually don't have to pay for this grant like other school divisions. And so The benefit is we are getting a lot of training support resources that total almost $400,000. And the NIMSY program touches over 2 million students, over 65,000 teachers, and 1,300 high schools across the country. So why advanced placement? Of course, advanced placement is nationally known. It's vetted by the College Board, and so we want to make sure that our students have access to college-level coursework to develop those skills. It gives them a competitive advantage in the college admissions process, and of course, the financial benefits because of scholarships. And so a lot of times people will focus on students getting 3 or 4 on an AP exam, but extensive research shows that even students who get a 1 or a 2, the experience further prepares them for life, college, but even if they aren't college bound, it still is a very good experience and good for them to have those rigorous collaborations. The College Readiness Program through NIMSY actually has a large increase in scores, and you can see that the grade areas are gives you a percentage, a sense of what qualifying scores are in AP, and then of course that orange color is for school divisions that have engaged with NIMSY, the AP scores increase quite a lot. And so this is just a graphic of the programmatic supports, and I'll go through those more in detail in slides that follow, but there's extensive teacher support in the way of training and resources. There's extensive student support in the way of paying for exam fees to subsidize those and to give them access to master teachers who are experts in their field. And then there's also a great deal of support for schools in terms of a leadership team. So the CRP program, teachers actually can register to go to a 2-day conference in San Antonio, all expenses paid. So they actually pay airfare, lodging, rental cars, everything. And so teachers get to converge in San Antonio, and they get to collaborate with other AP teachers across the country. So they build that network, especially if you're a teacher who's a singleton, and you might be the only person in a division this size that teaches a course. It's nice to have that support network to be able to reach out to. So there's extensive content training there. There's also a summer series of 5 90-minute sessions. It's an online session in July. And teachers can either participate in that in live time, or they can, at a later point in time, August or September, participate in an asynchronous program, and we pay them for their time for that. And of course, there are additional online trainings. They have access to what they call a teacher village. So it's a Facebook community where they can connect regularly if they're having difficulty or they want to exchange resources. They have those colleagues to access. And of course, NIMSY provides teachers with lesson plans and unit plans and assessments, and so it really helps them not have to recreate the wheel. And of course, for the College Readiness Program, there's an honorarium for AP teachers that teach AP Math, Science, and English. So in terms of the leadership support, we get to identify building leaders, so principals and assistant principals from the middle and high school, and then like possibly a counselor, lead teachers, et cetera. And so the leadership team also has the opportunity to go to San Antonio, and while they're there, they get to collaborate to actually build a strategic plan. So in addition to looking at how we can increase the rigor in our AP courses and provide support, we're also going to be looking at strategies to increase dual enrollment and also our CTE offerings so that it's beyond just AP. There's online coaching and help with the strategic planning, and then there's an AP leader portal where they also have access to all of the curriculum materials, the supports, et cetera, as well as the data that helps inform our instruction. And then, of course, the really neat thing about this that you don't see in a lot of grants is the extensive student support. So students have access to, they have live access to nationally recognized AP coaches. They have on-demand access. So if a teacher notices that a student needs some reteaching, or a little bit more time with a certain topic, they can then, on their own time, go and review modules. They also have extensive test prep sessions. And, you know, part of the analysis of AP exams is if students understand how those tests are scored and how they're graded, if you understand the test, it's more apt that you'll be scoring higher. So students have a lot of support that they have access to. Also, based on our enrollment, and I think it's for every few hundred students, we get a $500 STEM award that we can give to students, and we get to determine what the criteria are. So it's not necessarily based on grades. It could be based on other criteria. So that's very exciting. We get to recognize student work and provide them with some support. And again, NIMSY will subsidize up to half of a student's AP exam score. And so what we as a division have talked about is, are there ways that we could then partner with some of our business partners to pay the other half? Because we don't want costs to be a barrier for any student not being able to take any of the AP exams that they would like. And then, of course, the other arm of this is laying the foundation, and it's how do we, starting in 6th grade, get students ready to pursue AP courses at high school. And so this is the NIMSY program called Laying the Foundation, and they refer to it as LTF, and it's for those grades 6 to 12 teachers in math, science, and English. So those teachers also, again, get to attend workshops in San Antonio. They get to participate in the online training, and they have access to modules, teaching resources, on-demand learning sessions, and a whole network of colleagues. And of course, again, this helps with collaboration, especially if you're a singleton teacher. That can be very lonely. And the nice thing about the laying the foundation is it gives us an opportunity to create vertical articulation, collaboration and conversations between our middle school teachers and our high school teachers. So they have a lot of these graphics that demonstrate to teachers and to leaders how the curriculum are scaffolded and how they're spiraled. So I don't know if you can see it very well, but they show, like, for example, area concept development, what that looks like in 3rd grade, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, all the way up to those secondary courses so that teachers can see it's not just the high school teachers that get students ready to take AP courses, but it starts in those very young grades. And of course, our summer academy, Emily Forrest has been hard at work with her and her colleagues getting ready for that. That's July 6th to August 4th. And we are right at 113 students, K-8. We've got about 5 students that have registered for the PE10 driver's education course. So we are hiring teachers and paraprofessionals, but we are pretty solidly prepared for the summer academy, which is exciting. And then, of course, the strategic plan, Mr. Tillett touched on this a little bit, but we have been very purposeful this year in making sure that we provide all stakeholders with substantive opportunities for input. So as he referenced, we had multiple surveys that went out, and in fact, we even reopened those surveys a second time in order to increase user input. We had focus groups that were conducted, and Mr. Tillett and I went out and met with our community partners, and then our K-12 Insight partners met with focus groups, parents, students, administrators, teachers, etc. In our April 19th school board meeting, we had a work session where we went over the draft documents, and then we created a live Google document for board members to also be able to add additional input. And we've had a series of ongoing administrator meetings. So all of that feedback has resulted in the draft framework that you all received earlier. And so what we're asking for tonight is for the board to approve the overall framework, which is the mission, the vision, our beliefs and values, and then the 4 focus areas that are highlighted here: teaching and learning and instruction, student social and emotional well-being, district, school, and staff effectiveness and engagement, and parent and community engagement and satisfaction. So once we have the framework approved, then moving toward the finish line, we have actually a retreat planned for all day tomorrow and half a day Thursday. And our team of educators will then, that's when the practitioners will collaborate to finalize the objectives and the action steps. And I'm going to walk you through a sample in just a minute. But this work is fluid and organic. So we're going to start with best practices, and then based on the data and feedback from staff, we will continually update this. If things are working, great. If not, we'll update and adjust, and it might be that we find some things we need to add. So here's a sample. The focus area is the one that I chose to use for your example is teaching, learning, and instruction. So the focus area indicates that we want to provide a high quality and innovative curriculum, instruction, and learning. And then, of course, the objective is to assess and enhance a meaningful curriculum with real-world applications for all students. So the action steps that I listed there are just possible action steps, and that's actually the work that we've started some of this work, but we'll be finalizing it over the next couple of days in our retreat. So action steps might be reviewing and assessing the current scope and sequence to make sure that it's aligned with standards. Is there any updating that needs to be done? We might survey our stakeholders to solicit their input and feedback on our curriculum and instruction. Looking at lessons and assessments for alignment, making sure that we're vertically aligned, and then actually creating new curricula and designing effective lessons, units, assessments, etc. And so then once you identify your action steps, then of course we need to look at how do we know we're moving in the right direction? So then as a team, we would want to identify what are all of the possible data sources that we have that we can review to make sure that we're making progress in the right direction. So it might be a survey, it might be the actual hard copies of curriculum, classroom walkthroughs and observations. Is what's on paper actually what's happening in those classrooms? Curriculum and instruction surveys, and then actual measures of student outcomes. So are students performing? If you have a high quality curriculum, logic would say that yes, they are. And so then this document is actually from the existing strategic plan, but once we have our strategic plan finalized moving forward, we'll actually have a monitoring protocol that's aligned. So this is like our report card, and it will be color coded, and green, you're progressing, yellow, you have some things you might want to look at, red, you have some things you definitely want to look at. So, and then we will be giving regular updates at board meetings throughout the year so that it's not just at the beginning and at the end, but it's as we move along the 5 years. So the end result is this is an organic document. So, in years past, divisions used to create strategic plans and then sat on the shelf. And these really are living, breathing documents and they really are the roadmap that allow practitioners to practice their trade. And so student performance and student success indicators really take a variety of forms. So we're going to be looking at social emotional. So there are a variety of data that we look at, health, wellness, safety, behavioral, so we look at discipline data, academic, that might be SOLs, gross assessments, and it also might be looking at numbers. Are we increasing the number of students that take CTE, dual enrollment, AP, et cetera, math science courses? So in terms of next steps, we have a staff training that we'll do in August so that we share the strategic plan not only with the board and the community at large, but also with our staff. And then principals will be able to work with their teams in the buildings for things that are building specific. And then, of course, as I said, board updates throughout the year. So really in tonight's presentation, what we wanted to do was to recap the flow of the work that's been done to date, provide time if the board has additional questions, and then, of course, we're asking the board to approve the overall framework of the strategic plan. And then tonight, under items for consideration, I have some documents to share with you, but we're going to be asking for the board to agree upon a final mission, vision, and belief statements. We do realize that the documents that's come from K-12 have a few errors in them. So they have assured us, I mean, our team will be editing and scrubbing it, but they also have a team of editors that will be making sure that the final copy is error-free. And then, of course, as I said, we have a leadership retreat the next 2 days. So while we have just closed out the school year, we're already gearing up to plan for the beginning of the year. So that work will encompass most of the summer. And then in August, we'll have another meeting with our administrators to really begin the prep for opening of the first day of school. Any questions?
The update you showed 4 goals. There's a 5th goal in there. The
Did I miss one?
finance.
I think so.
Oh,
Yeah.
So is that
I
right?
did.
Okay.
I apologize.
I'm
Yes,
so
you're
sure
right.
That's still there. Okay.
yes.
And then that is, like you said, organic. So we'll be reaching out to the same stakeholders that are coming into the teachers, parents, everybody can feed in to make sure that we are following and maybe adjusting when we need to.
Absolutely. Yep.
So there wasn't any expansion on the behavioral topic. What's the action, like what are you going to look for, and then what's the end from that you're trying to gather?
Well, you can look at behavior in a couple of different ways. Are there certain times of the day where we have a spike in instances? So you look at when the behavior occurs, what those instances are. So for example, if a lot of the referrals come in seem to be tied more to classroom management, then we as a division know that perhaps that's professional development that we need to provide. So it's a cycle and it's all connected. So we look at various pieces of data to inform kind of what we do moving forward.
So I got a vocabulary problem over here. In the agenda, it says draft strategic plan, and in your presentation, strategic plan framework without the word draft in it. So what exactly are we approving?
Well, you want to?
I was going to say, it's always a draft until you approve it. So
Right.
what you're looking at tonight is a draft form. Our job is to draft, and once we do, it becomes our official document once you all take action tonight. The key concept here that I think we have to keep focused on is your role as a board is to approve the overall framework of what a strategic plan will look like. The goals represent our whole community, and we think we've done due diligence to go out and seek out that feedback. So these are goals that represent what our community wants. Then it's our job as the practitioners to build the action steps. I'll use this analogy. If we were all a board of the hospital, we would be doing that same kind of work. We wouldn't tell the surgeon how to go in and do our operation. That would be counterproductive. So it's the same is true here. You may all have expertise in certain areas, but that's not your role. Your role is to oversee the vision of the school division and to hire me to run it. And that's what you've done. And now our work is to go and let the experts build the action steps that are necessary to grow this. And then we're going to give you a report card on a regular basis that you will look and say, is this working or not? And so I just wanted to kind of summarize that. I've gotten a few questions from various board members throughout the week about the specific roles of this. It is an organic process. We will continue to report out our work and our progress. And then there'll be big ticket items. We're going to come to you at some point next year to say, we'd like to talk about launching a dual language program, for example. We've had some talk in the community about that. I've been mentioning it since I got here, seen great success there. Might be something you're interested in doing. We won't take any of those big steps until you guys are in support of that, because that, again, is your role. We're excited about this. We think this is going to be a good opportunity for us to take a great school division and grow it. And that's how you do it, by strategic planning. So, yeah, good question.
So with us on the board, though, when we have the community coming to us with certain feelings about this, it's organic. We still come to you, and then we can still make adjustments if
Yeah.
something big needs adjustments. So we're
Absolutely.
giving you a
Yes.
framework now to start working on. But when things change, or the community sees something change, or principals come to us, or anything
Or
comes,
some
we can kind of
SLs
figure out
dip
where we
or
go.
something.
Yeah, and then if something happens in this plan that's not that the community doesn't support or you don't support, your role is to report that to me, and then we make adjustments. That's what an organic plan does. Again, I've worked with quite a few strategic plans, been at it a long time, and this is a process that works, and it's meaningful. And as Dr. Hill said, it's unfortunate that some of these plans are developed, they're approved, and then they're shoved on a shelf somewhere, and that's the last time they're looked at. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that happen, and if so, we waste a lot of time. So we really believe in this process. So the next part of the work is that we need to get out in the field with our folks that implement the plan. Make sure that our curriculum is aligned, that we're teaching what we're supposed to be teaching, and that the kids are learning. And if they're not, we have to come back to the drawing board and say, this isn't working. And we're, as I hope you know about our team so far, we believe in transparency. We're not trying to hide anything. If the numbers start heading in the wrong direction, we're going to say, this is not working. We got to fix it. So one of the things that I do want to mention that we do believe in is, and I know you do as well, we believe in following best practices. Some of this stuff is not, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can find things that have proved to work, and we want to copy those things and then train our folks, our practitioners, how to do it better. But these are all good questions. It's not a one and done. It's a fluid, organic process. We'll be coming to you often in adjusting.
That's what I like, that you're going to come to us often and bring it to us to review, because I feel like over the past few years, that's been something that you're right, has been shelved. So I think
Thanks for that clarity. I just want to make sure we were consistent through everything,
Sure.
and then everybody understood exactly what was going on. So there were some questions. We had some phone calls and stuff going on.
did you
Well, and it's,
I was just going to ask, if you could go back to that framework slide, so we're clear.
that one?
And the fifth would be finance.
Finance, yes.
Okay.
And of course, a strategic plan is built to last over the course of years. And so it wouldn't stand to reason that you would create it at the beginning and it would look the same at the back end that it does at the front end. So as data change, we'll start out by addressing the learning loss, for example. And then as we get more student assessment data, it might be that the focus might be more on math or more on reading. So it again is organic and will ebb and flow. Okay.
And one other point while we're on this, because I think it's, we've talked individually with some of you about this, and I think it's important for it to be said. Normally, a strategic plan ends and the other one starts. The challenge with this is we are now having to reinvent the world, so to speak. This data from 2018 is almost useless. We know there's learning loss. Every school division would be lying if they tried to say that it's not. We've experienced something that's never happened in my lifetime, or probably anyone in this room, certainly not. And so we're benchmarking now about where we are. Our data is just coming in from this year's SOLs, for example. And if you looked at last year's SOL exams, which were by choice, only about 50% of the kids took them. And then, even then, our comparison to state data, our kids look good. They did very well in comparison. But is that the picture we want to paint? No. The picture is that we've got some unfinished learning, and we want to address that. So part of this is going to be to benchmark now where is our current results, where are our kids, and then we start drilling down into what specifically they need. And that's going to be hard work. I mean, I don't pretend that it's not. It's going to be this next year or two. There's going to be a lot in that left for all of us. Our staff is ready and able, but we got a lot of learning to do to make sure that we close those gaps for kids. So it is, and lastly, just for clarification, that goal 5 that was just not on the slide but is in the draft plan is finance, facilities, and operations.
Thank you. you.
I think I like that, the action plan, because action plans always change, no matter which board you're on, if it's in the hospital or not, you never know what changes within a year or two, and with a 4-year plan, those action changes are going to change depending on teachers and community, and how we get our feedback.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Excuse me. Thank you for taking the time to walk through everything with us. I think you know how passionate all of us are. We're on the board. We definitely support you and are going to ask the tough questions and make sure that we're doing the right thing for all the community. So thank you, Dr. Hill.
Thank you.
Mr. Tillett. Next up would be our finance update with Ms. Woodruff.
All right, good evening, Chair Helsel and members of the school board. For the finance report, I wanted to start with the FY23 budget update. As we've talked about, we've been waiting for the state budget, and we got a General Assembly budget the beginning of this month. I heard that the governor might have signed the budget today, and I didn't hear about changes yet. So we provided you with a copy of the amended budget. We're also going to get that on the website as well. And on the consideration, you will be considering approval. So, all right, quick walk through the budget process thus far. The school board approved the budget at its March 15th meeting, which was based on Governor Northam's budget in December. The city then approved their budget on May 9th and actually included an additional contribution amount over our request, so that we could provide an additional compensation increase for all of our employees. And just like I mentioned, the General Assembly approved the budget on June 1st. So what you have tonight is based on what the General Assembly approved. The state has 10 days to give us a calc tool. Fortunately, they gave us this a little bit early. We anticipate getting another one if there are any governor's changes. So this kind of shows you what was approved by the school board on March 15th was a budget of almost $26.5 million. Then the city gave us $168,819 for an additional 1%. This means that we can provide a 6% compensation increase for our employees, which is excellent for next year. The General Assembly provided an increase in funding of $198,586, which was primarily an increase in SOQ funding for basic aid and sales tax adjustment. There was an increase in incentive funding, which was primarily related to the grocery tax hold harmless funding. And then there was a slight decrease in the lottery funds, which really was just some adjustments from lottery to basic aid for early reading and at-risk funding. We are going to watch the sales tax distributions very carefully over the next year. We do anticipate there could be some fluctuations in the economy. So with the city and state increase in revenue, the total amended budget increase was $367,405, so a total amended budget of 26.8. And here is walking through the spending plan. Again, the 1% from the city for the additional compensation. The state has put an emphasis on early reading this year, so the General Assembly provided an additional SOQ position for the elementary reading specialist. We have 1.5 at the primary school, so this would be 1 at the elementary school. Other planned expenditures are an increase in fuel and parts as a result of the costs. They are continuing to go up, so we wanted to increase that. There is also an increase for the classroom instructional materials and supplies accounts at each of the schools. We would like to eliminate the material fees that we charge all of our families, so that way we don't have to charge them, but then we can increase those budgets and provide what the school needs for that. The schools will continue to charge other course fees such as art, technology, music. And then we also plan to purchase 2 additional vans for student transportation. We have used those almost daily this year, and it's been great to have for small student groups. And it's much more cost effective than running a bus for a couple kids. Other upcoming budget items that I wanted to update you on now, they are not in the amended budget. We will bring those back to you. The first is school construction funding in the amount of $1.5 million. We wanted to take some time to really prioritize capital needs with this and work with the city on the capital improvements plan. The second is a one-time bonus. This was something new with the General Assembly that they added. And once the governor does finalize the budget, we anticipate about $203,000 for a $1,000 one-time bonus for all SOQ positions. State only gives us for SOQ, so what we're going to have to do is find the money to cover for all employees, because we prefer to give it to all. And then, as we look forward to the FY23 budget, we're still working in FY22, and my staff will continue to do that over the next couple months as we close out and prepare for our audit. In June, we usually receive a final calculation tool from the state, but we have not received that yet. Last year was similar. Normally we get it at the beginning of June. We still haven't gotten it yet. Last year was about this time, so hopefully that's coming in the next couple days. We're in the midst of trying to finalize all the spending and reviewing of end-of-year balances. And this year, we did have an unusual year of staff vacancies. So we have had a number throughout the year. Some were vacant the whole year, some were filled, then went vacant, and vice versa, were vacant and then filled late in the year. So we did have some reduced spending related to those positions. We do have some spending initiatives that we're still working on trying to wrap up, which include technology replacements, purchasing additional instructional materials for our classrooms, investments in athletic equipment, and band instruments. If there are any remaining local funds at the close of the year, we do make a request to the city to reappropriate these funds. This year, we did that at the beginning of the year, and they gave us our money back, and we have been able to use those towards the PMS modernization project, 2 bus replacements in the high school traffic loop that's getting ready to begin. And as I mentioned last month, we do have new auditors this year, and we had a planning meeting a couple weeks ago to discuss the upcoming audit plan. The auditors will be here on and off over the summer and into the fall to do all of their field work. And lastly, I know Mr. Tillett mentioned the school donations in his presentation, so I'm not going to repeat that. But I did want to mention that I had provided you with a full list of all the donations. I tend to do that in June, just so you see them every school board meeting, but then this gives you a list of all of them combined together. So the donations are very much appreciated, and they help our division in so many ways. So that concludes my report.
Thank you for giving us this handout. Any questions for Ms. Woodruff?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next we have Dr. Ratliff with an operations update for us.
Good evening, Madam Chair Helsel, Mr. Tillett, and other board members. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about safety practices, go through some of the things that happen behind the scenes of the school year when we're preparing, that we do to get ready. We're going to talk through an easement that we've already actually informally spoken with everyone about, and then briefly through the Student Code of Conduct booklet. So when you're looking at safety practices, we have requirements that we have to go through yearly. The windows typically open in May of the year prior, but usually what happens is once the school year is closed and you start getting the new school year going is when the principals and the division level staff really in earnest begin the work on preparing for the next year. The schools in the division always do a school safety survey, and it's very thorough, actually, and it informs the state very well on what we've done and what has and hasn't happened throughout the school year, and it's where they get a lot of their data. The crisis management plans are updated. The division one, really, we do that throughout the course of the school year if something happens. So we'll take, if you have an event happen at some other place and we're able to get background information as to, what went well, where they struggled, we then in turn apply that to our crisis management plan, or if it's something that we're dealing with and we need to see changes in that. The school-based ones during the summer is really when they're going to make the changes to go through toward theirs. There's a safety inspection checklist that the principals go through. It's actually only due to be turned in once every 3 years, but they still look through everything yearly. an annual school safety audit, and this one's a little bit more interesting when you look at it. It's kind of a report on what the school has and where vulnerabilities lie and where recommendations and concerns are. We take all of the data from that and we have a division level audit that goes through, and first responders, police, everyone kind of goes through at the end and talks about that, and that's where recommendations as to what we're actually going to be working toward will come through. The Virginia School Survey on Climate and Working Conditions, that's done every year. It's done at the middle school and the high school level. Each year it alternates as to which one you're going through. It's the middle school's turn this year. The high school has just gone this past year, but that's data that we always get back that helps us to inform how students actually feel with their safety in the school, and gives us some information on the staff members as well. Emergency drill schedules are also developed during this time. I'm not going to read through the requirements. I've put them on here. If you have questions about them, we can go through those in a little while.
I have a question. I know
Yes.
I talked to you about this, Mr. Tillett. It's been a while since the board's been able to watch the police do the.
I've got it in here.
Talk about that next.
Thank you.
We're going to do
Perfect.
some work with them this summer and invite the board to participate.
Sorry. All of our doors are always locked. Since, I don't know how long, since well before I came, we've operated on the badge entry system, which really, it makes things a lot more practical to keep doors locked and still allow the people in and out that should be able to get in and out. We brought in the lobby guard system a number of years ago to help and essentially monitor and track who all is in our building and who's not. We also use it as a student checkout system to help maintain that. The one change that we are actively making right now, there's a couple of schools that do not have the lobby guard system actually in the vestibule. Those will be moved. And next year, all of those will physically be in the vestibule area, breezeway area, before anyone would actually enter the building. School resource officers, we currently have one at the high school and the middle school. As you're aware, the city council has just approved one that will be shared between the elementary school and the primary school. And as far as I'm aware, the police department is actively working on filling that position. They are employed by the police department, so they'll speak with us, but in the end, they're their employee. Active shooter drills. I skipped one. The annual coordination with the Poquoson Police Department. I put annual coordination because we meet formally with them once a year during the summer, but we really, there's a lot of communication that goes back and forth among us between the chief, a couple of the lieutenants, the sergeants. I would say probably at least weekly, we have some sort of communication with them on top of the SROs being in the schools. Active shooter drills, prior to the pandemic, these have been done yearly within the schools. As the pandemic came, the police department has backed off a little bit of doing them. Those are coming back. I actually met with several of them from the police department within the last week, and what they want to do this year is to have those in the middle school as soon as they can get in there. So at that point, we'll be beginning the year with those drills. Administrators, we will probably invite and probably have come. We have several new administrators, so I honestly don't know how many have and haven't seen these drills. Board members, you all will be invited. Probably only a few of you have actually seen the drills. But it really opens your eyes when you hear the guns firing and you see the scenarios that they go through, and it really puts everything in an entirely different perspective when you see that good and hear that going on in a school. So that will be to be coming soon toward the beginning of the year once we start getting more into the middle school. One of the other things that we do is the principals go through crisis management plans at the beginning of each school year. To make sure and go through the high points of the crisis management plans for the staff members, both on the division level and on the school level. We have yearly lockdown and intruder drills. Prior to the pandemic, we had started having other scenarios within the drill. You know, at some point, you do them so much over the years, the kids get very comfortable in doing it, and when they get comfortable is when problems can happen. So we had started making different scenarios. We may block a hallway. We had actually done them during class changes. We had pulled a fire alarm. We always go through and knock and try to get them to open a door, whether it's us or the police or whomever that may be. The police are always present when we do these drills. Where we were going and what we will continue now that we're kind of through the rough patch is we'll do one during lunch, we'll do one during a class change, and then we'll also do one and have a fire alarm again. I think we did that at the middle school, I believe. Is that right? I don't think we did that one at the high school yet. So anyway, we'll start throwing in the various scenarios. As we see a little bit of comfort in how well the older kids do, then we kind of start moving down. As we started with the scenarios before, we started with the high school, and then just slowly we're getting down to the middle school, and then elementary school would have been next. But we always want the kids to be prepared for anything that may happen. Threat assessments. We do a lot more with threat assessments than people would imagine. We really kind of have two layers of threat assessment. The first layer that we do is more of a, I guess what I'll call a school-based threat assessment, and that follows the Department of Criminal Justice Services model. That is more of your school-based staff members going through the threat assessment and determining whether you have a low, a medium, or a high-level threat. If you have a medium or sometimes a medium, most certainly always a high-level threat, we take it one step further. And then the school psychologists come in and they conduct a threat assessment. And when they do that, what they're doing is they're actually doing the social history, looking at the factors that are impacting the child. They go through the different rating scales. It actually yields scores of the likelihood that the child may or may not commit an act of violence in what they've done or what they've said. It sounds like a really rough process all the way around, but I'll tell you, after doing many of these over the years, typically good information comes out of it that the parents don't know about their children. And a lot of times we're able to get intervention in place. And, you know, if we can get intervention in place while they're young, that's going to be the time to do it rather than as they get older. So it's not always a negative thing. However, most times there are consequences that come with actions that have happened. And a lot of times these threat assessments will help to determine what those consequences may be. The security system. We've got security cameras, as you know, throughout the schools. We actually have a fairly substantial number of cameras embedded throughout the division. Last year, we started having the vendor that we use for the security cameras actually coming in and doing monthly maintenance on the servers. You would run into problems. You have a range of ages with these cameras, and it seems like each time you may need it, you would run into a problem of this camera being down or this camera may be broken. So once we started having them do the monthly service, they're actually flagging that and fixing that as they go along. So any cameras that we run into that may not be working anymore, we're having those repaired as they go along and ensuring that they're always up for when we need something. We have interior and exterior coverage. All the cameras are networked. So essentially we have the ability to have the cameras on our mobile devices. Next year we'll have, actually all of the buses will be have internet connections because of a program that we are bringing in for routing for helping the drivers. But we think that our DVR system on the buses will actually have the capability when the buses are parked nightly to download all of your videos from the buses onto our servers. So that will expedite even more things when we have to search for things that have happened on the bus. We don't have to go pull the tapes. We just have to get onto the server and look and see what we have. The ballistic film on the windows, that's one of the things that has come from the safety audits that has been done. We have, and I don't have a list of where it is and where it's not, but I would say on a greater majority of your entry windows and your big windowed areas in the schools, there is a ballistics film. we're looking at getting the areas that we don't have covered. The problem is it's a really expensive thing. And if you don't know really what the ballistic shield does is it doesn't prevent a bullet from coming through, but what it will do is it will help the glass to shatter and stay intact. If somebody wants to get through it badly enough, they're going to get through it. But it's one of those deterrents that may help to save a few lives if something bad were to happen. I wanted to talk a little bit about the easement that you guys will hopefully be formally approving tonight. So with the modernization at the middle school comes a new sprinkler system throughout the school. And basically what has happened is a new fire hydrant and a dedicated line to that sprinkler system has to come out in order to have the capacity to be able to run that. The connection, the easement for the connection has to be dedicated to Newport News Waterworks. So essentially what we have is an easement that is 11 and a quarter foot by just over 30 feet long in a T. If you look, it's right in the middle by Poplar Street in the yellow. Essentially what that will allow us for is they'll have a new fire hydrant there. All of your water lines for the sprinkler system will come off of that easement. And honestly, that's really the final piece in waiting to get permanent water right now to the school too. We've already have permanent power, permanent gas, so once we get this process done, they'll have permanent water. But the sprinkler system is the impetus and why we have to have it. In the modernization, we'll put out a couple of things that I don't know that we've really formally put out before, but the construction company is about 3 months ahead of schedule. They've been really good to work with. Right now, we are planning on having students in their own buildings next year and not sharing any buildings either at the primary or at the elementary school or the high school. Furniture set to start arriving in mid-July. Portions of the building are now conditioned, and basically the big step in that is you have to wait on them to be conditioned before you can do your finish painting and your flooring. So essentially what you have is the old parts of the building right now, the moisture level is such so they can start doing the flooring. In the old parts, it may actually be off floored at this point. The last time I was through last week, the bottom floor was, and they were working toward the top. In the new part, where it has been open, the moisture content still has been a little bit high. So what they'll do now since they have the conditioning is they'll cycle through heat and air to try to make essentially the HVAC system work as a dehumidifier to try to get everything dried out so they can complete the building there. And then we've already talked about the power and water. And lastly, on the student handbook and code of conduct booklet, there are minor changes throughout. There's nothing that's really substantial. The attendance requirements were changed to what we vote or what you guys voted on in the January board meeting. The dress code changes were made that we talked about in the work session in the May board meeting. There was one regarding the fees, the two changes, and one of them's highlighted and one of them's not highlighted. If you look under the materials fee, we didn't want to take that out of the fees in case it ever does come back. So if you look, it's toward the top. What we did was we took the required wording out of that because we had an idea that we were going to try to pull it out of the fees this year. The other thing that we'll have is an optional device insurance. And we're getting the kinks worked out of that right now. It looks like it's going to be a $30 to actually purchase that insurance, and then it tiers. The first incident, I think there is no fee, and then the next incident, there's a little bit of a deductible, and the next there may be a larger deductible. So hopefully that will solve a lot of problems that people have run into with devices and some of the worry that they've had. Breakfast and lunch at the primary school and elementary school went up 10 cents. It's been since the 1920 school year since we've had an increase there. When you go through the formula, the middle school and high school are at what we can charge. We are going back to paid lunches and breakfast next year, so The fear and the worry is the supply charges have gone up to a point that it will be difficult for us to maintain what we have. Right now, we're sitting in really good shape in the financial end and food services. We have turned a lot of it back around and invested in the infrastructure. The state only will allow us, actually it's a federal requirement, will only allow us to carry 3 months of operating expenses. So as much as I would like to just sit on that and worry for what's happening next year, essentially we're required to have the plan to spend down there. There was a makeup work statement that we revised to it's honestly quite a bit more student-friendly in how we've changed that. We've revised the directory information statement. While our policy read correctly, the student handbook didn't necessarily read as it should. The testing calendar's updated. There were 2 disciplinary dispositions that needed to be added to your table of consequences, and all of that comes directly from the state. And we took and the wording on the AUP policy changed slightly. There was 1 paragraph that was added in. Essentially, the devices that kids have now are like the textbooks that I would have known when I was in school. So essentially, we've added within that AUP policy that, whoever the device is checked out to, they are responsible for. And hopefully, we can push the device insurance enough. We can't force people to take it, and we can't charge a fee. But hopefully, we can get people to see what a value it is enough that we can get that sold. All of the paperwork was taken out of it because everything that we're going to do will be done online. We've gone back through and redesigned and reworded quite a bit of it to hopefully stream down on some of the duplicate information and make it a little bit quicker, easier process with less clicks for people to have to get through.
Are we getting farther away from devices? Are we going to be devices for the rest of our time and they're going to have screen time while they're in school all the time?
I think that you're never going to see a time in public education, in any education, where the devices aren't there. I think the screen time is something that when you're looking at the instructional side of it and how teachers conduct their classes, that's where you have to see the shift in that. You have to, there's a fine line in, pushing so that you use the appropriate technology and have kids do what they're in the world, what they're going to be familiar with in the world they are, and not using that as a babysitter. So I think that that's something as you continue to work toward, truly using the devices to the appropriate extent. That's one of those things through the instructional process that you have to work out and you have to figure out. But I don't think there's going to be a time that you're not going to see them embedded within the curriculum. Mr. Tillett?
I'd like to just add to that, these devices are a tool, and they, like every other tool we use, we have to find balance. In the old days, we used to be concerned about teachers who taught too much out of a textbook and not having enough hands-on and manipulatives to engage all of the learning styles. So the same is true with these devices. They're tools. And we want our teachers to get good at using all of the tools available. I can't imagine an art class not being more hands-on and less device-driven, for example, and there are lots of other examples. But our teachers will find that balance. Again, I come from a division that's been a one-to-one division for 12 years. We were one of the early adopters of handing out the devices, and over time, teachers find that balance of what works for the learning of children, and it'll be all over the place, and we'll grow at it, we'll get better at it, and I feel good about the capability we have now to use these appropriately. So I hope that's your question.
Dr. Ratliff, and please put me first in line for the device insurance policy. I definitely need a few of those. Me too. Ms. McKay, do we have any public comment this evening?
No public comment.
Thank you. And Mr. Childress is going to walk us through the consent agendas, please.
So the consent agenda is we are going to do approval for the financial reports, authorization to change appropriation and to accept and expend fundings in accordance with attached request, approval of personnel action, approval of minutes of May's regular meeting and work session, authorization for PHS to apply for membership with the Virginia High School League for school year 2022 and 2023, authorization for appointment of student representative of the school board for school year 2023, Lexi Pesanoff, maybe? I'll try all year to get that right. Authorization for the superintendent to grant an easement for Newport News Bottle Works related to the Poquoson Middle School modernization project, and authorization for superintendent to sign a renewal contract with Aeromart for food services management.
Thank you. Mr. Childers, anybody have any questions about anything on the consent agenda?
I'd like to ask about the personnel action. I mean, we kind of alluded to it earlier, but there's 11 people that are on this agenda that are leaving, and then you said there was one more tonight. And then there was, 4 or 5 last month, and then 3 or 4 the month before that. Do we know why these people are leaving?
We do an exit survey. We've been doing it for some time, and we always ask the question in the survey, why are you departing? And we get a laundry list of reasons. I would say the top 4, and we'll make a report. I already have a plan that this is information we should share at the board level every year. I think it's valuable to look at, especially now that we're in this unusual climate in the teacher shortage. But the top 4 are moving out of the area, retirement, they're the top 2, followed by compensation always comes up. I can make more money down the street. And fourthly, we have started to see lack of growth opportunities, which is something we want to address. Being a small division, there's only one, administrative position that comes up every so often kind of thing. And some of our folks have left to take promotion opportunities in neighboring school divisions. We hate to see them go, but at the same time, we don't want to slow their opportunity to grow. So those are the top 4 that we see. And we'll make a full report to you guys in August after we've gone through the hiring season, so you can see exactly what that trend is, because it is something we want to be very focused on. The goal is to keep them, and those are the reasons we typically see.
For approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. McKay, would you please call for the vote?
Mr. Ingram,
Aye.
Mr. Freeman,
Aye.
Mr. Childress,
Aye.
Ms. Martin,
Aye.
Chair Helsel.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. So next we'll move on to other matters for consideration. The first one is consideration of approval of appointment of clerk and deputy clerk of the board.
Madam Chair, as we did last year, we will be recommending the approval of Dusty McKay as our board clerk and Dr. Christy Hill as our deputy clerk.
Any discussion? Would I like to make a motion?
I move that we vote for the appointment of the clerk and deputy clerk of the board, as is in our reading file.
Call for a vote?
Mr. Ingram,
Aye.
Mr. Freeman,
Aye.
Mr. Childress,
Aye.
Ms. Martin,
Aye.
Chair Helsel.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, and thank you both for serving.
Thank you.
The next item is consideration of approval of regular school board dates and times for the 2022-23 school year.
And Madam Chair, you see those in the packet, and they are, we've continued the same trend that we have for many years of that same date, with the exception of the August and December date due to the holidays.
Everybody good with that? Okay. For one?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the regular school board meeting dates and times for 2022 and 2023 as indicated in the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. McKay, would you please call for the vote?
Mr. Ingram,
Aye.
Mr. Freeman,
Aye.
Mr. Childress,
Aye.
Ms. Martin,
Aye.
Chair Helsel.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Next is the consideration of approval of student handbook and code of conduct for 2022-2023 school year. I know we discussed this.
Yep.
I know we made some changes last month. We have a chance to review. Is everybody good with everything? Any comments or questions before we?
So yeah, like the face covering, the bullet point for that, it talks about CDC, VDOE, and VDH. It doesn't say anything about, at the sole discretion of the parents. And, we went through this, January 21st, somewhere around there. So I think that all that should be struck and at the discretion or at the consent of the parent.
Well, just for clarification, this is a code of conduct. It has nothing to do with policy related to whether masks are mandated or not. This is, can they be allowed? What we had in our old policy, if you'll recall, was masks were prohibited. So this is simply a clarification that if, in fact, masks are required at some point,
medical
your policy
mask,
or
right.
medical or whatever, that we wouldn't have a child being addressed at school for wearing a mask. Because in our old policy, if you'll recall, it said no mask. This is, we discussed this as just simply a clarification. The masks are not prohibited for medical purposes. They are, if you'll notice, as we discussed in the work session, prohibited as part of a costume. And we mentioned that in an earlier bullet. We have had kids who try to wear, a clown costume or something at school, and that can be disruptive. So that's really the purpose of it. It's not about medical or pandemic mask in any way.
Try to drill them apart, I think.
Yeah, and I think we were allowing for people who may want to wear a mask for.
Right, so with that, can we put optional at the beginning? So optional during times of pandemics and widespread illness?
Well, it may not be optional. Again, this is not a policy thing. You will decide that at the
Right,
time it
that's
comes
what I'm
up.
concerned with. Future school boards may,
I don't think it's wise for us to legislate future school boards. This is you'll see this again every year. It's required by law that we have our code of conduct approved by the school board annually. So every year we'll come back to you to amend this. If there's any future board that wants to change that policy, of course, that practice they can. Again, just to clarify, this is only to allow mask, which was prohibited in the old one, and I think it was not intended for that. It was intended for costume mask, not medical mask. We've clarified that in this one, we believe, by saying this is for medical purposes.
But it is optional, like, if a student goes to school and they want to wear a mask, they can, but we're not going to force them to.
Correct. There's nothing in this code of conduct that has anything that requires anything. This just keeps us from prohibiting.
Right, before they would have gotten in trouble for wearing the mask.
Yeah.
Technically, the way it was written, to the letter of the law.
And we did have that come up. It was a strange question and it was an easy answer. But we had someone suggest we had a policy against masks when what they were really suggesting is we shouldn't have been telling people to wear a mask. And, that debate went on for some time, but I didn't want that to be confusing. So I think in our conversation, and we'll certainly rewrite it if that was not your intention, but we were trying to prohibit costume masks.
That's exactly what we were trying to do, I think.
Motion to approve the student handbook and code of conduct for 2022 and 2023 as put in the reading file.
Mr. Ingram?
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Freeman?
Aye.
Mr. Childress?
Aye.
Ms. Martin?
Aye.
Chair Helsel?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Next, we have consideration of approval of the amended 2022-2023 budget. Questions, comments about the amended budget? Amended budget, I think.
Motion to approve amended 2022-2023 budget.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Ms. McKay, would you please call for the vote?
Mr. Ingram,
Aye.
Mr. Freeman,
Aye.
Mr. Childress,
Aye.
Ms. Martin,
Aye.
Chair Helsel. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. And last on our matters for consideration, we have the consideration of approval of the draft 2022 to 2027 strategic plan. I know we had some questions. Dr. Hill reviewed it. Any additional questions, or everybody?
Yeah, just reading, two words pop out to me, diversity and inclusivity. Those are polarizing words. I feel we should remove those. Everything else looks decent the way it is. I'm not
Are
saying
you referring
change.
to the vision statement,
Well,
the mission statement?
the strategic plan in general, like when it has, inclusivity and celebrate diversity and all that stuff. I mean, do we really need to use, those polarizing words?
And we can,
Is
if
that
you,
our beliefs and values, I think is where.
that what we're talking about? I was just trying to find out where those things were mentioned in
Have a
here.
reference point in the document, I
It's
think
our
is what
belief
they're
and
asking
values,
for.
it's on the second
Okay.
page.
Bullet, diversity.
Gotcha. Yep, we can strike any words you want to. This part of it is we brought to you guys to decide. These were, this language was developed from a group of people just brainstorming what might be good mission, vision, and value statements for our school division. I personally, the only thing I'm here recommending is I think the shorter the better. One of the things I've found is it's good when we can recite our mission and our vision.
Absolutely.
And if it's 2 paragraphs, it's difficult to do.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I learned when we started talking about this many years ago, a mission and vision, it should be sticky, something that we say and talk about often, so it's part of our vernacular. And some of these, especially our old mission and vision, it just seemed too wordy. So I do like if we could kind of chip away at this in pieces. The mission, if we could land on one, I love the short and sweet one.
I do too.
That just says, our mission of Poquoson City Public Schools is to prepare all students for success in their future. I think that says it all. But then there are other options. And secondly, the vision, we made several recommendations there, but we could also table that and come back and talk through that later. None of this is imperative. But if there's language in the mission statements that you all want to talk through, we can certainly do that as well.
I was a little, you gave us, 5 or 6 to choose from? I just kind of, I don't like any of them
Too
personally.
many, okay? Gotcha.
Did you say you don't like them then?
Not particularly. Nothing struck me as, wow, that's it.
That's the one, right, gotcha.
I make a
What,
motion that we table.
Want to just hold out on can we agree on the mission and want to do that and then come back?
Or
do you
is it
wanna-
all or nothing, or can we tease
No.
stuff out and do one at a time?
Yeah.
Okay, we can do that, yeah. I'm fine.
You could make a. Well, there's no motion on the
There's no
table.
motion, so we
So
need a
you could approve the strategic plan framework with a vote, and then you could separate out and vote, somebody make a motion to approve the mission statement, and then table the vision and values statements for another time, and we can even schedule a work session. None of that's going to hold up our work.
Yeah, we don't want to hold you up.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve the mission statement that Mr. Tillett just read, and that we table the rest of it until we can discuss further.
Table the vision and values.
Correct.
Okay.
And we'll still vote on the focus areas.
Still vote on the focus areas.
Yes.
Just the mission and values tabled.
Gotcha. Okay.
Not the mission,
Vision.
the vision and
Vision
and values.
values.
The mission and the other bullets.
Okay, I'm going to state that again, since I'm fumbling tonight. My motion is to accept the mission statement and to table the vision and value.
Of the,
And approve the
Draft.
5 focus areas.
that's right.
Make another motion for that.
Second?
That's good, yeah.
Everybody
Got
good
a
with that?
Motion in a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. McKay, would you call for a vote for that, please?
Mr. Ingram,
Aye.
Mr. Freeman,
Aye.
Mr. Childress,
So with our mission, are we stopping at the success in their future, or are we going to college and career pursuits and for responsible citizenship, or where are we stopping at? What is the mission that we're doing?
Poquoson City Public Schools is to prepare all students for success.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, I'm sorry, I went ahead of you. Sorry, I'm trying, it's, my bedtime approaches. Aye.
Chair Helsel.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. So the next part would be,
Motion to approve the focus area, the 5 focus areas from the strategic plan.
Second.
thank you. Did you get that, Ms. McKay? Okay, can you call for the vote?
Mr. Ingram.
Aye.
Mr. Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Childress.
Aye.
Ms. Martin.
Aye.
Chair Helsel.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, Ms. McKay. So next, we'll move on to communications or other matters by the school board and/or superintendent. Mr. Tillett, do you have anything else?
Yes, something real brief, and I know we've gone long tonight, and I apologize, but I do want to publicly thank Mr. Jordan, even though he's not here tonight. It's been a pleasure to work with him these last 2 years for me personally and professionally. He's been a very steady school board member, and I've appreciated his voice of reason throughout some tough decisions, and his steadfast counsel. So I do appreciate him very much, and want to thank him for all of his years of service with Poquoson Schools. And lastly, I want to welcome Lexi. I had the pleasure of meeting her at the Kiwanis barbecue, where she and I served beans and hush puppies together in 100-degree weather for several hours. So she's a trooper, and we appreciate very much her resume of volunteer work and hard work academically and also on the athletic field. So we appreciate her and look forward to working with her this next year.
Thank you, Mr. Tillett. Mr. Ingram?
Yeah, thank you. So many people to congratulate, so many teams to congratulate. All did a great job this school year. Welcome, Ms. Pashinahoff.
I got this.
Of course you do.
I too want to thank Jeremy for his input on the, the financial aspects of added. It really helped with making decisions, and he's definitely going to be missed. He's always smiling, and he had a ear to the ground, with the community, so that's definitely. And just want to congratulate all the graduates. Speak and just want a successful life. Also want to thank all the graduates that serve in this country. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Mr. Freeman?
Yeah, we got to attend the graduation ceremony last Friday night, and I'd like to give a public shout out to Ms. Duvall, Ms. Yarborough, Ms. Morrison, and the other teachers who were there. But they did an incredible job. I think I went to Mr. Roberts after and said that was run very smoothly, and it was just a great job, all the people that put that together. So thank you very much. Lexi, congratulations. So as Ms. Hustle alluded to earlier, we interviewed several people, but one usually shines, and it was no doubt who our candidate would be after the interviews were over. So good job. We look forward to working with you. Congratulations to OM team, soccer team, the tennis stars. Way to represent is always great. I'd like to thank City Council for providing a new SRO to the elementary school. I do wish they would have given the courtesy to the school board and asked us, but I'm sure the majority of us would have said yes anyway. And Jeremy Jordan, that's some pretty big shoes to fill. I hate that he's not going to be on the board anymore. He was a great community resource. He had a lot of connections. And he did a lot of stuff, mitigated a lot of issues and things before it got to the board. And I don't think people realize just how much he did. So I appreciate my time with him and our time with him, and that's going to be some big footsteps.
Yes, I'd like to congratulate all the sports team and the Odyssey of the Mind. That's amazing work that they did up there. I couldn't even come close to thinking about some of that stuff, so that's a great job by them. I want to thank Jeremy for his mentorship when I first came in. He really helped me kind of decide on how I'm supposed to run this and, well, not run this, but do this. And so he was very good and very helpful. End of the year, my kids didn't want it to end, so that shows how good these teachers have done, and all these educators and all the staff inside those schools. They were elementary and primary, and they were like, I don't want it to end, I want to go back. And I was like, well, they need a break from you, so let's give them a little bit of a much needed break from this year, so that's good. I'd like to thank the community too. I know within this last year, they've been asking what they can do and how they can help, and a lot of people did mention you can substitute teach if you really want to help. And again, 21 new substitute teachers, that's just amazing that the community stepped up to say, yes, we are here to help and we'll come out there. The retired teachers to come out of retirement to help mentor new teachers. I mean, they just said, okay, I'm done, but they're like, no, I'm coming back and I'm going to help it still make it great, so that's good. The donations that come through is just amazing for these schools, and then the city council support for the teachers to give them and staff what they need to make sure that we can still try to function and make sure that a small community can grow, and that's kind of what we need as a community, and they are stepping up big, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Childress. Ms. Martin?
Yes, thanks. So on a serious note, just the safety concerns and not disaster planning, but the intruder and lockdown drills are very important, and I do look forward to talking more about that. We talked about having young children prepared, and I really think it needs to be a mindset to as prepared as possible, because we don't really know how anybody's going to respond, and the drills are helpful, but we still have to be prepared as possible, and I think the idea that we're prepared and prepared as possible are two different things. So I really would like to kind of, investigate that a little bit further and see where we can get. I would like to say thanks to Jeremy for his service on the school board and to the city. Congrats to tennis, soccer, and OM. I would like to give a shout out to the bus drivers. That is a thankless job, and I can only imagine riding on a bus with children yelling and having all of the things that happen on a bus. I just can't imagine, but special shout out to Miss Julie, who is my kid's bus driver. They love her. It's a special person that drives a school bus. And lastly, let me say welcome to Lexi Peshahanov. I've known Lexi for a long time, so welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you, Ms. Martin, and I would agree with all the comments that were made. I will say, Lexi, we're really excited to have you with us. Mr. Roberts, you and your team did a wonderful job. It's always an honor to sit up on that stage at graduation and watch everybody. The $1.7 million in scholarships is phenomenal. All the different places our graduates are going is just a great testament to the community. Other than that, again, I agree with everybody else, and I don't have any more material for board review tonight.
No, ma'am.
Okay, well, with that, I'm going to adjourn us, and and we are going to have another meeting.
Special call meeting.
A special call meeting.
Conference room, it is open, of course, but we're going to eat too.